Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into Michael Crabtree's beautifully metaphorical short story, The Vessel of Last Light. We're going to unpack this profoundly moving narrative to see what actually happens when human beauty and literally our raw emotions become completely regulated by a bureaucracy. It is such a fascinating look at the transaction of wonder, and man, I am so excited to guide you through this journey today. To kick things off, the narrative drops us right into a pretty devastating premise. I want you to imagine a society that has been just systematically drained of its emotional capacity. We're talking about a city of 300,000 people who walk around completely unable to access their own feelings of awe, beauty, or wonder. Which really begs the question, what happens to a civilization when pure beauty is treated as just an inefficiency? Now, the text calls this condition the pallor, but, and this is absolutely crucial, it isn't some dark, evil, oppressive shadow. Instead, it's described more like an emptied, erased reality. Think of the ghost of an erasure on a wiped page. It's this systemic loss of feeling that just leaves a bleached, emotional blankness over everything. Basically, it's a world categorized, measured, and totally stripped of organic joy. So, what's the city's only remedy for this bureaucratic nightmare? Well, it's something called residue. You can think of it as a highly regulated, almost medicinal microdose of wonder. These are small, carefully measured, amber drops dispensed by our 51-year-old protagonist, Isabeth. See, she's a professional vessel. She absorbs beauty and literally metabolizes it into these tiny doses for a population that can only afford to feel something maybe once every few months. She's the ultimate professional gatekeeper of this highly regulated system. Moving into part one, the boy who dreamed and breaking the bureaucracy. This incredibly rigid system is suddenly and completely disrupted by an 8-year-old boy named Oren. So Oren falls into this deep, unchanging sleep, but his mind is so active that his crude berry juice paintings literally begin to bleed this unnameable, impossible color right out onto the city streets. And this color? It causes spontaneous wonder wherever it touches, completely bypassing the bureaucracy. I mean, people literally freeze in the streets, totally overcome with unadministered emotion. Realizing the sheer magnitude of this, Isaveth uses an ancient bone and glass tool called the Unmaker's Needle to physically blow her own consciousness directly into the boy's dream. That brings us to part two, 3 trials in the dream and the transactional cost. Once Isaveth blows her consciousness into this synesthetic dreamscape, a place where, amazingly, corridors taste blue and smell like rain, she finds that the pallor's logic has actually infected the dream. It forces her to undergo 3 incredibly grueling tests just to reach the boy. Now, these aren't physical fights, right? They are profound tests of her internal emotional reserves. Specifically, she faces the challenge of imagination, the challenge of dream logic, and the challenge of creativity. And here's the real kicker. Every single step forward in this dream costs Isaveth something intensely personal and completely permanent. For example, to pass the imagination challenge, she creates a beautiful, worn, intergenerational kitchen, but she pays for it by permanently losing the physical memory of her very own personal safe room. Then, to cross the gap of creativity, she fuses a lullaby, a handprint, and glass into a bridge, which completely drains her professional chamber of all its stored wonder. Piece by piece, she is literally being stripped of all her professional defenses. But honestly, the second challenge, Dream Logic, is perhaps the most heartbreaking. She encounters this giant musical instrument resonating with a single stifling note. And the text describes the temperature of this note so perfectly. It's the exact devastating frequency of a trusted adult looking at a creative child and dismissively saying, "It's a phase." I mean, just think about that. Those few simple words that can completely crush a child's interior life. Isaveth quickly realizes that her professional distance, the way she's managed pain for 30 years, well, it just won't work here. Protected compassion simply cannot reach what it needs to reach. So, to neutralize this resonant hurt in the dream, she must take on the boy's wound as a true first-person experience. She has to validate his pain by letting it actually pierce her own heart. This means permanently sacrificing her emotional armor, leaving her interior walls fundamentally and forever thin. Which leads us directly into part 3, facing the bureaucratic avatar and the supreme ordeal. So now, stripped of her defenses, missing her safe memories, and entirely emptied of her stored wonder, Isaveth finally reaches Oren's inner chamber. But of course, she has to face the ultimate final boss, a physical manifestation of the pallor itself. This avatar smells of institutional metal and official paper. Seriously, think of it as the ultimate DMV nightmare, but for human emotions. It represents a system that insists beauty is just a category error and that emotion must be a measurable transactional efficiency. But standing against that, we have Isabeth. She's finally learning from young Oren how to simply witness beauty with unmediated attention, to just look at something and love it exactly as it is, completely without an agenda. When Isabeth asks how to see this impossible color, Oren silently teaches her this incredibly profound lesson in pure attention. It's the simple act of giving something worth without demanding it do anything in return. It's not about gathering beauty to distribute it as a product, like she used to do. He shows her that it's really just about validating beauty's existence by saying, "You are here, I see you, this is enough." Empowered by this completely unselfish perspective, Isabeth taps right back into her past as a glassblower. She uses the unmaker's needle to gather the impossible color. And guys, for the first time in 30 years, she acts entirely for herself, not as some professional vessel. With a deep breath, she blows the color permanently into the fabric of the dream. And the avatar? It literally short-circuits. Confronted by a totally selfless act of beauty that has zero metric, zero cost, and absolutely no expected return, the avatar's rigid categorizing logic just fails, and it quietly disperses into nothing. And finally, we arrive at part 4, a return to pure beauty and the dreamless return. As the impossible color floods out into the waking world, bypassing every single one of the city's regulations, Isabeth opens her eyes back at her station. But right away, she discovers an echoing absence in her mind. The transaction she made in that dreamscape, it's complete and it's permanent. To ensure the world outside could feel wonder, to guarantee that this impossible color could thrive, her own personal ability to dream has been traded away forever. Now, what I absolutely love about this story is that it doesn't just hand us some cliché happily ever after ending, it's actually a beautifully grounded resolution. The bureaucracy of the palace survives. The government is still out there planning new regulations. But at the exact same time, the unstoppable, spreading color born from Oren's dream continues moving block by block through the city. These two completely contrasting realities, the institutional gray and the unnameable wonder, they just unapologetically coexist. In the beautifully quiet, closing moments of the story, Isabeth finds an old, flawed piece of practice glass from her youth. She holds it up to the October morning light. And for the first time, she doesn't try to capture the beauty. She doesn't try to metabolize it into residue for someone else to consume. She simply lets the unmediated warmth of the light wash over her, finally experiencing pure, unregulated joy purely for its own sake. I want to leave you with this provocative thought to ponder. In our own highly structured, constantly measuring world, when was the last time you allowed beauty to exist without asking it to be useful? It's a huge question, right? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Take some time today to reflect on it and maybe try to discover what your own impossible color might be.